All right. What city are you in again?
We're in Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay. Yeah, I used to live in Irving.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was in Irving for like 4 years. We did the majority of the Brotherman comics were produced when I was living in Irving from 91 to 94.
Oh, so y'all were here.
Yeah, we did most of the work while we were there before relocating back to Philadelphia.
Wow. I collected all 10 back in the day when it came out.
Yeah. See, because we were doing a lot down there. We were in the Fort Worth Star Telegram.
Yeah.
They did a story on us. And Dallas was really big on supporting it, like when we came out. And that was one reason why we moved to Texas, because during that time, hold on, I'm letting them know I'm on now.
Okay.
Yeah, because when we first started the company, me and my other brother were living in Jersey. We were in East Orange, New Jersey.
Okay.
And my dad and my mom had moved to. My mom was she was recruited as a teacher in Dallas Independent School District.
Okay.
So they had moved down to Dallas and got a home in Irving. And then my dad was just telling me, like, it might be a better place to relocate the business as opposed to being like in the New York area.
Yeah.
Because, okay, this guy.
Mr. Sales.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
We're doing great. Good morning, sir.
Good. Get it together, okay? Get it together.
Yes, get it together. So, okay. So, brother was telling us that y'all did most of the work here where we are in the Metroplex, DFW Metroplex.
Yeah. We were down there. Our parents lived down in that area in Irving at that time.
Wow. I used to go to a bookstore here in Fort Worth called Roots and Culture. And that's where I used to get the books from.
Yeah, and in Dallas, one of the biggest supporters was the Black bookstore was Black Images.
Yes, Black Images in Dallas. I remember Black Images. I frequented that place as well.
Yeah, and there was a comic shop called Lone Star Comics and Games. They were big on supporting us in that comic genre.
Okay.
I mean? So yeah, a lot of support. And then the cool thing about Dallas was that it was equidistant to all the major cities in the U.S. And back then we were driving everywhere. Like, we built the company up on our own. And so we would drive from Dallas to Chicago, Dallas to L.A., Dallas to New York, Dallas to Atlanta. And, we put crazy mileage on a van just in 2 years.
So our work went into just the promotion aspect of the book once it came out. Y'all found yourselves traveling and having to do like in-store appearances and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's how you that's how you build the brand, So I think nowadays, things have changed, and I'm sure they're probably going to ask some of these questions.
Yeah.
But it's just a different time. We didn't have internet.
Yeah.
Like, imagine from all those people that we came across, as a business owner back in those days, that's any business owner. Even when you collected names, we didn't have mailing. Well, we had mailing lists, but you didn't have email lists.
Yeah, it was like mailing, like in the mailbox.
Mail it, and it would cost a ton of money to mail it. So you would have to mail a flyer or a postcard, and it would cost a gang of money. And we didn't have a website.
Okay, wow.
There's a lot of advantages that the young people have now that they at their fingertips.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and officially get into this conversation today. I want to officially welcome Guy A. Sims, right? And brother, we want to get your name right. Anyabwile. Dawud Anyabwile.
Dawud Anyabwile.
All right. We want to welcome you guys to the Uhuru Academy. Just to let y'all know who we are, we're Fort Worth's first and only African-centered school. We have students in our classroom. We got a few brothers here. Omari, look alive, look alive. Don't let our guests see you looking old. You know, we got a few students in the classroom. We have quite a few students online with us right now in the video chat. They're homeschooled. They actually go to school at the Uhuru Academy every day from home. We stress our history. We stress learning entrepreneurship, the importance of owning and operating our own businesses, the importance of owning land. We stress the importance of telling our story and controlling the narrative of African people. So when the the movie Black Panther, with Black Panther coming out, which is a Marvel Comics film about a black superhero, came out, I was like, wow, a lot of us are going to go see the movie. But at the same time, there are Black-owned entities, Black-owned institutions or comic book writers that have created Black superheroes over the years that don't get the shine necessarily because it's kind of difficult to compete with the big boys, and they've been co-opting our story for a long time. And so I thought it was very important to expose our children to true trailblazers and creators of Black superheroes, and get the information straight from the African's mouth, so to speak, about y'all's journey, about the importance of imagery and Black superheroes. And we want to know how you feel about a character like Black Panther coming to light, and as opposed to the Black comic book movement, And so I guess I just threw my questions out there off top. So if you guys could just kind of briefly introduce yourselves, as far as Brother Dawud and Brother Guy, and tell us your role in the Brotherman comic series, and then we'll start kicking off some questions and that sort of thing. Is that cool?
That's fine.
All right.
Okay. Guy, you want to start? Or?
Okay, I'll start. Hey, good morning to you, and good morning to all the kids. I'm Guy Sims. I'm the head writer of the Brotherman comic book series and the Duke Denham detective series. I'm the actual brother of Dawud. He's my youngest brother. There were 4 boys, and he's the youngest, and I'm second to the oldest. I'm calling to you from Bluefield, West Virginia. So we're pretty spread out, and that's who I am right now. I've just always been a writer, and I'll start right there so Dawud can get to introduce himself, and then we'll jump into it.
Okay, yeah, my name's Dawud Anyabwile. My brother Guy and I, we were all born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that's our hometown. And I was born under the name David Sims, and I had official name change 22 years ago. And I'm the CEO and co-creator and illustrator of the Brotherman comic book series. But I've also been an artist all my life. I've been pretty much an entrepreneur or about entrepreneurial ventures since high school. So I always wanted to own my own business. And, I always had aspirations of creating and operating, my own studio or something similar. It was kind of like a long journey from the 80s up until now. So right now, even outside of the comic book, I do a lot of storyboard and illustration work for freelance projects for different clients, and some film projects like the BET show, The Quad. These are some of the latest things I worked on. The Quad on BET. Right now I'm working on Goosebumps 2, the movie, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul that just came out. I did storyboards on that. And I was at Turner Studios, which is Cartoon Network. I was there for 10 years. But you know, and prior to that, I worked in Hollywood for 2 years on the show Wild Thornberrys and Rugrats, and before that, I was working in New York doing game animation. And to me, it's like, you know, working at those studios, you know, I just kind of want to get the experience because I didn't have that type of training. So I looked at working at the studios as getting paid to go to school, you know, and I always try not to fall into the trap when, you know, working for some place, you know, I always, like my father taught me this, you can learn something anywhere. You know, anywhere you're working, you're going to learn something. If it's a place that you hate, you may learn, I never want to work there again. You know, so that may be your experience. So to me, working at these studios kind of taught me, okay, so this is how this works. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. Okay. So that when I build my own thing, it can stand up to that quality. But I'm not trying to uphold their pillars. You know, when I'm there, I do the best job. I do what I got to do. But I keep my mind focused on, I got to build my thing at the end of the day. So when I'm off their clock, I'm back to doing my stuff. Wow. So that has been my journey so far because, you know, we're not financed like these giant studios. So, you know, I do a lot of things like solo. Not that I want to, you know, it's just sometimes it's difficult to build a team when you're doing something like this, or you have a vision that of something that really hasn't been done before. Sometimes it's hard to get people to see what you see because a lot of times people are they're enamored by those institutions that are already established. Think about it, like Marvel and all that. We were born into that. When we were born, they already existed. So they have a grip on your mind in an early age. And some people, they grow it to be my age, 50 or even older, and they never release that grip. So anything that those studios produce or these companies produce, there's this affinity that almost like a godlike status. Like, wow, they gave me this. Wow, look, they gave me this. And then what happens in your lifetime, you fail to realize, well, what did you build in all that time? Well, the whole time you were admiring them and looking up to them, at the end of the day, what do you have to get to your children? And so that's my thing. And I think sometimes people misinterpret as hating or, you know, 'cause that's the big thing now. Like once you assess something or you're critical in terms of your thinking, people think you're trying to take away their fun or their joy, but that's the whole way this system is designed. But, you know, I'll get into that later. Yeah. I guess I'm trying to get my intro and I'm going all in.
But that was very powerful. But when you said Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Omar lit up. My son.
To be honest, like when I'm doing presentations at schools, I don't talk about those things to like, you know, just to further advance it. It's because I know this is the thing that the youth know.
Yes.
So sometimes, like when you're speaking, they may not know Brotherman, they not know who I am, and you know they might be like this, and then you mention that thing that they know, they sit up straight, like, oh wait, hold up.
Yep, that actually happened.
You worked on that. Then when you get their attention, you talk to them about that, you explain your role in that, but then I bring them back to this because now they're paying attention. But I don't leave it at that. Like, okay, so you can work there too, and you can be part of the cog in that system as well. You know, that's really what
I really love how you pointed out that while you're working for these big companies, you're picking up the skills necessary to grow your own. You're not there with the idea that I'm going to be here forever. I'm here so I can gain the skills necessary, pick up some, develop the relationships necessary to take all this back and to build my own business, you know, which I think that's very important to teach young people, particularly our young people, that, you may have to enter into corporate America or enter, like, for example, young Vincent here, he's a pilot. He's going to be a pilot. Well, he may have, but his goal is to actually have his own airline one day, you know, but he understands he may have to go work for an airline prior to having his own airline, you know, just to learn the ins and outs and the relationships you have to make in order to do that. So that was a very, very good point that you made. Don't y'all agree? All right, good.
I mean, let me also add another thing that, once again, our father shared with me, because I'm in higher education, and he said, no matter where you work, this is kind of tied to what Dawud said, how you can learn something from wherever you are. But he said a lot of times you work in places, and since you're there, they offer you something while you're there. Whether it's to they might give you money for an advanced degree or certificates. He said, always get what they're offering and take it with you. And I know from history and my experience, with other coworkers, people say, hey, I want to get my advanced degree, and they talk about it, and years go by, and then right before they're about to leave, then they want to start, and it's too late. If there's something, there's a value of working with something that's established, like Dawud said, there's something to learn, and there's always something to gain that you then take to yourself and then say, okay, now I know how to do this, and now I'm going to do it my way. And a good example I always use is when you first learn to cook, you get the recipe, or someone tells you this is how you do it. And even something simple as making popcorn, they say, well, put a teaspoon of cooking oil in the pot, and then put half a cup of popcorn after it gets hot. But after you learn that, then you say, you know what, I'm gonna do it my own way. Yeah, I'm gonna put I don't need the teaspoon, I don't need the cup. I'm gonna use a bigger pot, I'm gonna use a skillet, I'm gonna use a microwave. But you learn the foundation, and now you can take it with you, and you don't lose it. You can just always build on top of it. So that's also as a baseline of something to share.
Okay. And Brother Sims, as a writer, we do creative writing every morning. That's how we open our day at the Uhuru Academy. Is we do creative writing, and every day we may give them a different writing prompt to get them going. And it's a way to kind of get their minds working in the morning, get that creativity flowing in the morning. And we got some pretty good writers developing here. One in particular I like to point out is one of my seniors, Aisha. She's discovered that she has a talent for writing. How do you make a living as a writer?
Well, there's really a number of different ways, because there's a number of different ways you can utilize that craft. And it doesn't all have to be creative writing. Creative writing is just one way of telling a story or telling an event. There's people that, you go into journalism, and that was my original path that I thought I wanted, to go into journalism, until I did an internship at a magazine back in Philadelphia. And then I realized that particular style wasn't what I wanted to do, but I still wanted to write. There's people who need technical writers. So all your textbooks that you use, that's just another form of writing. Someone taking some information and putting it in a form that a kid like Kefri or Kibra or Corinne, it's designed for them. So that's another way. Then of course there's magazines, and people are bloggers, people are screenwriters. And so if the kids right now you're learning the tools of the craft, sentence structure and how to relate a story. So there's just a lot of different ways. And so as you grow as a writer, you will be exposed to all these different ways of writing, playwriting. There's so many venues, and there's so many venues you can create for yourself. There's people who write other people's biographies. You meet someone famous and you say, hey, let me tell your story. So you sit down with them. So really, that goes back to the journalism line, because you're interviewing, and then now you're crafting somebody's story and telling it. So every time you see a movie like Marshall, or the autobiography of Malcolm X, it's a lot of different ways of writing now in one complete package.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you for that. One more question for you, Brother Dawud. Then we're going to open it up for questions from the students. As an artist and being someone who's in media arts, what are some paths that young people can take to launch a career in the media arts? How do you make a living as an artist or as someone who's good with computer animation? What path would you give or advice would you give to a young African looking to go into that field?
Well, to me, I always think of the arts in general as the thing that runs society. So you always had that phrase "starving artists," and the irony in that is that there's so many people getting laid off now that you can have a starving scientist, you have a starving doctor, all these people getting laid off, no job. So you really can't buy into the concept that there's no job. Because number one, you're talking about job, talking about somebody giving you something when you can create something. If there's not a job, you can still create something because people respond to visuals and people they respond to creativity. So, say you don't have a job, and I'm just saying, okay, on the base level you can do a portrait. People always want a picture of themselves. You can always tell stories on paintings. Like I just, there's some paintings back here, but paintings, that'll never die. You can always go that route. But then, beyond that, everything around us is designed. The chair we sit in, the house that we're in, a mall that you go to, somebody has to design that mall. Somebody has to design the clothing in that store. These are things people are getting paid crazy money for. You know what I mean? It's all depend on what you want to do. We need black car designers. Design a car, design a plane, and like we have the pilot there. I said, imagine if you had a black pilot, and then you had black designers who create the planes. So it's like a black African fleet of planes that are not only flying the plane, like we designed and built these planes. That's like next level stuff that who's thinking about that? And how many people do you think, especially, you do something that's just different, because the way we always innovate. We always learn something and then we just figure out a way to make it funky, make it soulful, make it different. And then it can compete with the high quality ones that are out there. But there's like a certain flavor that's connected to it. All of our people will want to be down with that, because we feel like it's ours. Like, why am I flying with Delta when I could fly, Uhuru Airlines? You know what I mean? So that's why it's like there's no limitation to creativity and things that you're doing. With me doing the comics, that's only because I was following a vision that I wanted to do as a child, but there's no telling where I really could have gone with my art. I don't have any remorse on it, but I'm just saying, like, for any artist coming up, it's not limited to comics, portraits, or the typical fine art thing. Once you start to look at the world in terms of outside of nature, outside of the things that grow naturally, everything else has to be designed. The pencil, the computer. There's an artist in place for every last thing that visually has to be seen and held. Okay. And just like with the writing, there's so many aspects of writing that it's not limited to writing a book, writing a movie, writing a play. Like I was saying, you have bloggers, you have technical writers. So it's all basically really finding out who you are, and I call it drawing from the soul. Looking at, you have to study yourself, know yourself, which you all are learning there at the school. Knowing who you are, knowing what your people need, and figuring out how do I connect my love, the things that I get up in the morning I love to do, and resolving a social issue at the same time, and working at the highest level of excellence, and have a perfect recipe for success and legacy.
All right.
Let me also chime in.
Yes, sir.
So that is, with your individual talent, that's one thing, but you also have to be able to work with other people who have different talents. When you see a they just had the rocket lift off last week. You know, that is a team of people, and there's still artists involved, there's still writers involved, but there's engineers involved, there's all these science. Everybody has a piece of it. So when you finally see the rocket take off, that's it. If I don't know, if people like sneakers and stuff like that. Once again, it's a person with an idea, and then they say, hey, sketch out this sneaker. And then they say, okay. Then they say, so what's it going to take to make it? So now you need manufacturing, you need textiles, you need, then comes the writers with maybe a business plan, business marketing, advertising. You need
naming the sneaker.
Yeah, naming it. Then you need people who are doing your finance. So once again, it's all these people that come together to make one thing. I would encourage you. There's a video out there called "How to Make a Pencil." I don't know if you ever. That's all you got to remember: how to make a pencil. And
how to make a pencil.
Just explaining everything that goes into making one pencil. And so you always want to encourage people. You have your talent, but your one talent doesn't create the final product. Even when Dawud and I working on the book, I can conceive a character, and I can see it in my mind, but I don't draw. So I have to go to Dawud and say, Dawud, this is kind of like what I'm thinking. Then Dawud he'll take what I have and extract and put his experiences and says, okay, do you think it looks like this? And then we come, it comes like this. Say, yeah, that's it. So now he has that, but then we had to manufacture the book. So that's somebody who had turnovers, because we don't have a printing press, so someone else has to do that part. So it is a lot of people working, and then working with people outside your group to say, you do this part. And so it really is, we look for people to be team. You got to be team, and you got to respect what other people do. One person doesn't make everything happen.
Wow. So you even have to think mathematically when putting that equation together. How do we get from point A to point B? Where do we plug this in? Where do we put that in?
It's more like a web, because versus it's not a straight line, because you're always you get to a point and say, well, okay, now we're here. How do you get here? Then then you got to go over here and get that, and then you got to go over here and get that, and then you got to bring them together. And so and some people are in it for the long haul. Some people just drop in. Here's my little bit, and then I'm gone. That's all you needed from me.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about Brotherman.
Okay.
Let's talk about our resident superhero, Brotherman. Okay. Let's talk about Brotherman. Could one of you first tell us who is Brotherman, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the crowd. Who is Brotherman, and what does he do?
Okay. Okay. I'll start out. I'll start out as the character, and then I'll let Dawud jump into like the history. So we'll go back and forth. In the city of Big City, which is a city that we created, the city was not chaos, but you had a lot of apathy. People just letting things happen, let things slide. Crime is doing its thing. And there was a gentleman in the story. His name was Antonio Valor, and he saw this, and he was inspired by his family, inspired by things that he read, to one day want to be someone who, made a difference. And he created eventually the persona of Brotherman. And Dawud has Brotherman right behind his head. That's him, big and strong. Antonio started out as a kid, just like one of the kids I'm looking at in the little pictures, who's online. And so it's about Brotherman. He's trying to make the city a better place. He's not a quote unquote superhero because he doesn't have superpowers. What he has is a conviction to make things better. He uses his strength, he uses his mind, and he uses the people around him to work with people and to encourage them to do things to make things better. That's in it in a real nutshell. It's a fun story. We do have, as you can see, he wears a costume, so you do have that comic booky feel to it, with some of the villains that he has to deal with. But for the most part, he's just one man trying to make his city a better place.
Okay. It's Brotherman, one man trying to make his city a better place. He's using his mind, his strength, all his abilities. No over-the-top superpowers.
Right.
But intellect and discipline is a superpower within itself.
Correct. And in fact, behind Dawud, as I'm looking at him, those are several of the characters from the Brotherman world.
All right. Well, let's go. The children, the students came up with some questions related to the Brotherman story. They want to know about it. They haven't had the privilege of reading one yet. We definitely want to collect the series here in the school. So we're definitely going to make that happen. But they have some questions. And what I'll do, I'll start at the top left corner with Miss Kibra Muhammad. Now, part of being a good audience, y'all, is listening. So if one of your questions has already been answered based on your listening, try not to re-ask that question. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Based on your listening, and I'm watching to see who's paying attention, let's ask some questions and see if we can get some answers that we haven't already got. So let's start with Miss Kibra. What you got?
So first of all, hi, I'm Kibra. I wanted to know how many days does it take to actually draw out a comic that you make for your book?
Okay, well, it's really hard to say for me right now because I don't produce the books it's not like a monthly title. The original series of the Brotherman comics, we're 28 years in, and meaning that the original book came out in 1990 when I was 24 years old. When I did that, the book was originally in black and white. Like I said, it was a 24-page comic book. I think I did the first issue in a month and a half. I had no experience doing comics. I had no idea how comics were made. I had no timeline. The timeline was I'm trying to get it done before the New York Black Expo starts in April, which means, here it is, December 1989, and I know in January I have to have it done so February can go to print, and in March we get it back, and then we can introduce it in April. After that, the next book didn't come out until the end of the year because we had to promote the first book. So now I'm drawing the second book and promoting the first book. And it's been like that for each book. Then I'm working on the third book and we're promoting the first and the second book. And the reason why it's hard for me to say is because I'm doing it independently, and a lot of independents run into this problem where there may not be a real timeline schedule because they're wearing a lot of different hats and promoting, as opposed to maybe some mainstream studios. They may say, our books come out monthly or bi-monthly because they have a marketing department, they have a distribution department, they have, this artist is just doing pencils. They just pencil it. Mm-hmm. They have another artist, they just ink it. Another artist just does the coloring. Another artist just does the lettering. And when you break it down like that, it becomes a cohesive machine that can crank it out on a schedule. So for me, that's one of the most difficult questions because I never work in a linear fashion. Like I'm working on Brotherman Revelation, the graphic novel book 2, but it's a huge book. It's like 100 pages, but I may be working on it for a couple months, but then I have to stop to do freelance work that may take me off the book for like 2 or 3 months, and then I'm back on the book. So I never really know how long it takes. I know it might be a long answer, but that's just me.
No, that's a great answer, and it speaks to the difference between being independent and building something from the ground up, as opposed to joining, like you say, the machine.
Right.
So very good. All right, Rahmani, the Ninja Martian.
Why and how did you come up with the name Brotherman? And were there any other names that you thought of before this?
Now, actually, well, what happened was like I said, throw back to 1989. There was the Black Expositions. It was called Black Expo USA in New York City started, and that was like something that was groundbreaking at the time. Like, it was Black businesses can come to this huge event in New York City and showcase their wares. And my other brother, Jason, and I had went to that show in 1989. We said, man, we need to be here next year. And we just said, hey, let's have a comic book. So that's really how it started. It wasn't like we were comic book heads trying to make a comic book. We just said, hey, it'll be different to have a comic book, because back then, as far as independence, nobody was talking comic books. The whole vibration of what you see now with comics, our book was on the cutting edge of creating this vibration now. Like, now you have a lot of Black independents who make comics. You have a lot of people are tuned into comic books. Black people are tuned into comic books. At the time we did it, when we first came out with it, people were like, what is this? And we had to explain it's a comic book, because that's how different the vibration was and the energy was back then. So Brotherman was actually just a character that I had in my book. I always had, just like your name, you create these monikers or characters, and you have these stories in your head, and there may not necessarily be like a long, deep definition to it, and sometimes there may be. And Brotherman was just a play off of the term that's been in the community for years. And we said, well, let's make that the character, because you think about Superman, Batman, Brotherman was like natural. Brotherman was like, it's us. It speaks to us. But what we wanted to do was, when developing the character, we gave it more, and it had to evolve. It didn't start at the first issue being that complex as it is now, because when you create anything, it takes time to build. It takes time to develop. So what we want to do was say, hey, we were thinking about the men in our communities when we were growing up in Philly. A lot of times when you think about the Black man, in general, because I sometimes would ask the audience, say if I'm doing an event, say, okay, when you think of a Black man, what do you think of? And then I would ask the audience, how many of you thought of a scientist? How many of you thought of a doctor? How many of you thought of a school president? You know what I mean? And hands don't go up. They say, how many thought of a rapper? How many thought of a criminal? How many thought of, and then that says a lot about how society views us. So when we're thinking about, okay, well, Brotherman is like kind of like the return of the brother of man, because really that's what the word means. It's the antithesis of the N-word. It's really the opposite of that. But the N-word has been proliferated in our community, and the term Brotherman has kind of been erased from the community, which says a lot about the title of who we as Black men are walking around the community. So we said, okay, well, Brotherman is kind of like that, in a mythological allegory of the brother of man, the man that is there for family, the man that does protect the community, the man that is using his mind, the man that when you see him coming down the street, you feel protected. He's the warrior. He's the healer. He's the master teacher. You see what I'm saying? So we're taking that concept and turning it into this mythological book with characters that are all symbolic around him, of like, everybody's not like this character. Some people can vibe with this character. Some people can't stand this character. Like, why are you so straight? Why are you so goody, blah, 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 and so there's an internal fight when you're standing up straight, so long story short, that's what Brotherman to us represented. Beyond the comic book theme, it's like it had to evolve for us to say, you know what, that's what this represents. And I hope that made sense.
All right, good, great question, Rock. Great answer. All right, Camden, Uganda, Camden. Where you at, Cam?
Right here.
All right. You have a question? What's one? Give us one of your questions.
Can't see him.
How did you meet?
The two of us?
Oh.
We're brothers from birth. So we grew up in the same house. We know each other since we were babies.
I'm his older brother.
Okay. Yeah, so they're brothers, Cam. So they've been knowing each other forever. They made it home with God probably beating his little brother up and stuff. All right. Tut.
What's you saying?
We're gonna do Tut now, Cam. Good job.
Okay, this question is for Mr. Sims.
Yeah.
You're the writer, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So my question is, how do you write a fight scene in a comic? Because I think I'm kind of struggling on that concept.
Okay. Well, you have to. I look at it as two steps. One, what is my goal? Okay, and the goal is, and I'll just set up something very simple. Your main protagonist walks up, classic. They go into a building because they want to get information from somebody, and one of the goons is in there who attacks them. Okay, so in my mind, what I have to do is set up the choreography of what's going to happen, and know where do I want everybody when everything is all said and done. Is someone going to be lying on the floor? Is someone going to be laid out on a table or thrown through a window? Whatever. You've seen all these things on TV and stuff like that. But it's all choreography, and you want to know where you want to go from point A to your point Z. Now, the actual, throwing the punches and blocking the punches or picking up the chair or, lifting somebody up or whatever. That's all choreography. And I think a good way of learning how to diagram the choreography is to first to watch something. You probably have videos or something like that. Anything where you can stop the action and maybe watch. I don't know what you like to watch. Whatever. Let some action go by. Maybe like one or two things. Freeze it, then go back and describe what you just saw. So whether it's you're watching anime, whether you're watching wrestling, whether you're watching whatever, the two people approach and then you stop it. Okay, what's the first thing that happens? Now you can say, okay, he cocked his arm back, or he didn't cock his arm back. It just shot out like a rocket. And where did he hit him? He hit him square in the chest. He hooked him on the jaw. He was slick and he pulled the rug out from under him. That's a good way to do it, because then after that you start seeing things step by step. And I would say that's it's good. That's good practice for that kind of activity. And also another good thing, you're probably going to say, "Oh man, I'm not going to do that," but you can do it. Watching ballet, watching dance, because once again, it's bodies in motion, and you want to see how does the human body move, and then how do you describe it? And I think by watching something like ballet or dance or something like that, because if you don't normally watch it, that means you'll be watching it extra hard. You'll be very focused to see, oh, that's what they did. That's what they did. I'll throw this out at you. One of my favorite musicals, West Side Story. Me and my family, we've seen that thousands of times. There's a big fight scene in it, but it's still all dance. And once again, I can watch it and say, oh, they're fighting, but at the same time, they're dancing. So if you ever get a chance to check that out, that would be a way to do it. But once you do it, if you just watch the action and now describe it to yourself and write it down, that will help you. And then when you do your own fight scenes, then you can say, okay, I want them to do this. I want them to do that. But, you want to have your end in mind.
All right. Great question. Great answer.
I was going to tell him this book this is just one of the books that, I don't know if you can see it too well.
Yeah, I kind of see it.
That's nice.
Yeah, this is the cold hard cases.
That's cool.
Oh, thank you. This is this will be something I think will be good to read. Guy wrote all of these. There's five, right? Now,
I'm working on number 6.
Yeah. These are all from the Brotherman universe, but these are novels. So there's no pictures in it, which means you get to use your imagination on basically you're just reading Guy's words. It's basically like, this is how Guy would give me a script to Brotherman, but then I draw it so you can see it. But Guy's words are very visual. So you just read one paragraph and you get pulled into this book. But the thing I try to tell people, I said, Duke Denham, they read to me like these can be great Netflix series. I mean, they're great books. They're different. They're soulful. And it's funny you mentioned the fight scenes because Guy always writes these fight scenes where I can see what's happening before I, just from the words. So there's 5 of these books. This is volume 3 right here. And, this is the back of the book.
Okay.
And so I'll just do the covers of these books. But these are really good teen readers. And these are available on the website too. But for the writers, I think the cold hard cases of Duke Denham would be really good exploratory stories to check out. And then this is our graphic novel. This is the Brotherman Revelation graphic novel. This is the one that just came out in 2016. This is telling the origin story. This is when Guy said, when he started off as a young man, and this is telling how he grew up. And in the beginning, it starts off with a fight scene where he was in the subway. He was just going home in the subway, and this guy was in there trying to attack a woman, and he decided to intervene to help the woman. And then the guy pulled the knife out on him. So I had to think through this fight scene. And on this one, Guy didn't describe the fight scene. He just said there's a fight. And then I kind of had to make up the fight scene. So, I was just thinking it through. I don't know if this, can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
I can see it really well.
Yeah, so the guy cut his shoulder. So at one point he gets cut, because that's a big part of the story, is him second guessing, should I be a hero because I could die? And that's what the scene is representative of, is he's realizing like this superhero stuff, I'm not a superhero, I'm just a regular dude. And this guy's about to try to kill me. So, but he eventually gets the upper hand on this guy. And like, even like this scene right here, and I just think about, like just fighting, just if you practice it, or, I've taken like, African martial arts and capoeira and Angola and, boxing classes and things like that. So I'll just think of, how you turn your foot in because the power is in the hip. So here, this is where he gets the upper hand on the guy. So I didn't even have reference. I just knew how it felt, to do this movement. And so now he's got the upper hand on this guy, and now he's taking control of the fight. You see what I mean? And then he kind of goes off because
pretty cool fight scene.
He's still a young man, and he's like responding to the adrenaline of this guy almost tried to kill me. And it's not until this
police officer.
This officer comes in and intervenes, and then that's when he grabs his bag and gets out of there. So, so that's just one of the fight scenes in the book. So, you know, you can just have fun with it because, you know, the thing about creativity is it's yours. You can do whatever you want. You know, one of the coolest fight scenes that I've seen is this movie called Ong Bak. I don't know if any of you have seen it, ONG.
I've seen that. I've seen those.
Yeah, and you know
I love those movies.
Yeah, the fight scene going up the stairwell, and it was all done in one take. I mean, that had to really be choreographed. You know, people getting thrown off the stairs, and they never cut the camera. It was just going straight up the stairs. And it was a long scene, too. And I said, man, how they really plan that out? But I like doing, I think like that when I'm trying to come up with a scene. I want something that kind of flows. And my son is a filmmaker. So actually, when he makes films, he does fight scenes, and he likes his fight scenes to be like that, too. Like one long, flawless take.
All right. Excellent question, Tut. Excellent answer as well, y'all. That was really cool. All right. Carefree Imhotep, one of your questions, please.
What inspired you to start making comics?
Okay, well, for me, the story goes back to being in 3rd grade, and I don't know if I could do screen sharing. Oh, matter of fact, hold on 1 second. I got it right here. Okay. So this will give you a morning laugh. This is the first comic book I ever made. This is 1973. It's called The Protectors.
Wow. 3rd grade, huh?
Yep. And my mom told me, like, when I was little, she said, keep all your artwork because you never know. One day you might need it. And this is that day. That day I need it to show you. And this was actually on display at Auburn Avenue Research Library in a case. Like, we had a Brotherman art exhibition. So I had, like, all my old comic books that I made as a child. And, you know, they were all Black characters, you know, because when I was little, I used to love Marvel Comics. And I would tell the story about how, you know, this other brother moved in across the street from me, and he turned me on to Marvel Comics. You know, he hyped them all up, man. You got to get Thor, you got to get Iron Man, you know, Daredevil. And I was like, man, what is this guy talking about? I got to get up on this. And we would sit out front of our house and just copy from the comic books day in and day out. That's all we did. And then I remember talking to my dad and saying, hey, how come we don't have, like, comic books for us Black kids? And my dad had said a key line back then. He said, you got to be the one to do it, mister. He said, you can't be waiting for somebody to give you something. You'll be old and gray waiting. And so that's when I made these books, because I didn't want to be old and gray waiting. I wanted it now. So I made this. And then, but I was still collecting my Marvels. And then when I got to, like, 7th grade, even though I was doing that, you know, I'm still a young man, and I was all into Marvel. X-Men, I had 12-cent Daredevils, I had, like, Inhumans #1. You know, a lot of those books would be worth a lot of money now. And you couldn't tell me anything about Marvel. Like, if you said something negative about Marvel, you know, you'd be ready to fight over it. And what happened was, I think in 7th grade, my dad had to sit down with me about the imagery in the comic books, even the Black characters, because we separated the stack. Like, I saved up like 1,000 comics, and I would save my lunch money. I wouldn't eat at school. I would save my lunch money so I can buy comic books after school. And my dad wanted to talk to me about comic books. So I'm thinking, like, you know, my dad wanted to get in on this action. And, but he, you know, he wanted to talk to me about imagery. And so he said, how many of these books have Black characters in them? And I separated the stack. So I had mostly, like, out of 1,000 books, say there's 1,000 books, you know, you had Luke Cage, Black Panther, Falcon, and that was about it. Everything else was white characters, mutants, and aliens. And so even though I was aware of that, even since I was younger, I figured it was good enough because I had Luke Cage and Black Panther. But then my dad would say, okay, well, let's go into those books and study those books. And then within those books, I didn't know about like a lot of those hidden oppressive messages that were in a lot of these books. So once my dad hit me to that, I kind of got like, I was upset because I was like, man, I'm starving myself for these comic books, and this is what they think of us. Because Luke Cage is not the Luke Cage that was on Netflix now.
Yeah.
Pre-Luke Cage was very stereotypical, and there was other elements about Black Panther. You know, the question like guys say, like, you know, if he's the king of his own land, why is he working for Captain America and you know, defending a imperialist country? So, you know, just look at that and say, well, you know what? I don't want these anymore. And my parents had the fire going one night. My dad didn't tell me to burn my comics. He just wanted me to be hip to what's going on in the imagery. But I just told him, I said, I don't want these anymore. And I could have gave them away, but I just felt like they didn't need to exist. And that was my mind state at that time.
Wow.
I took all my comic books and I threw them all in the fireplace, and I was done with it. And that's why to this day, I don't have an affinity to Marvel and all that. I don't hate it. I just, like, if my dad didn't have that talk with me, I would probably not be doing this. I would probably be bragging about how I work on Wolverine or something like that. You know, not saying that that's not a success for somebody, but I'm just saying I think where my concept of success would lie in is I'm finally at Marvel. As a child, I always wanted to be at Marvel. I loved Marvel, and I never grew out of it. So I would be a grown man still wanting to be a part of that system. That's why I said that is why I've always said I wanted to create my own thing. And even when I look at the things that Marvel and them are doing now, I say, yeah, they're still the leader in their game. I don't take that away from them. I'm just saying, in the end of the day, what does it do for our community? I mean, we still got ghettos. We still got people getting shot every day. We don't have institutions built for us. Our schools are falling apart. You know, so, you know, I just have a different outlook on it. And I know that's probably, you know, I have these, my answer I just going a little bit deeper than.
You sound like you teach at the Uhuru Academy. That's what you sound.
Okay, so yeah, so they know what time it is. So
yeah, absolutely. Great question, Kefri, and great answer. It sounds like we need a brother man. We might have a Black Panther, but we need some brother mans in our community, for real. Okay, Queen Kanaya, what's your question?
Hi, my name is Kanaya.
And what is my question? Move away from Kibra a little bit.
My question is, what was your favorite part of the comic book?
You talking about Brotherman?
Yes.
Favorite part? Well, I think the favorite part for me is just the creating it, really going from nothing to creating something, and then saying, okay, and I'm going to do something next, and now I can do this, now I can do this. It's exciting to just create. You know, I think, you know, anybody who creates, they know that excitement. And then when we did the spinoff of when I got the idea, hey, I'm gonna do the Duke Denham series, that was exciting. So for me, it is just the creating. I like creating characters. I like creating different personalities. And because it is a world that I created, or, you know, that we created, but I could say, you know what, here's a different part of the city that we're going to, and then to imagine what is here, you know, and then say, okay, now we're going to go over here. What's over here? And what are the stores? What do the cars look like? And what kind of candy do they eat? And what kind of restaurants do they go to? To me, that's all exciting.
All right. Cool. Great question. Great answer. We're going to do, in the interest of time, we're going to do one more question. And then as an assignment, those who don't get to ask their question, we're going to go to the website and we're going to email our questions to you guys. Is that cool?
Oh, that's good. That'll work.
All right, cool. So we're going to do one more question. We're going to go with Aisha.
Hi, I'm Aisha. My question is, was there ever a moment of difficulty that weighed heavy on you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, there's so many. I mean, especially when you're doing something independent, something that goes against the grain. You know, because really we're going against an established system, and when you go against established system, a lot of people are not going to like you coming out the gate, because a lot of people are fans, and not only fans but die-hard fans of the established system. So when they see you creating something, they see you challenging the system. And when you're challenging the system, a lot of people feel like, you know, they want you to fail, you know, especially when you're challenging the system and you're a Black African. They don't, and you're proud of it. You know, when you're proud of it, you know, and not showing that, you know, when they say, hey, who's your idol, and you don't mention Stan Lee and all them, you know, I respect what he did and all that in terms of his work. You know, I'm not against that. I'm just saying, hey, we need to stand just as proud and successful as this guy. My icons, and I'll run down names of other people from my community, or even my father, and, you know, interviewers or things like that, they may not want to hear that. They're expecting you to mention who they think is great. And so when you have to stand up against that, you know, there's still a lot of pressure that you have to deal with, because it's like you're here going against something that's been established like this. So those are things that you have to, you know, you're taking on a fight, but it's still a lot of pressure. And you think about a lot of our freedom fighters over the years, we can always read about them and say, wow, they were great. But we don't realize, like, in their time, like people like Malcolm X, Dr. King, Marcus Garvey, you know, a lot of people didn't like the things that they were doing because they were going against the established system. And some people, they want to be comfortable in that established system. So you don't know how were they feeling when they go home, you know, after dealing with all these people that are against them or trying to sabotage them and kill them. So those things, you know, it's a lot of pressure. But the thing is, when you're steadfast in what you're doing, and also know that what you're doing is from a higher power, you know, call on your ancestors, and you know it's greater than you, you know. So those things, that's what helps get you past those pains, those challenges, saying, oh, this has to work. Like my dad said, you got to do it. Because if you don't do it, sometimes you have to look at things where if you don't do it, it won't happen. And that sometimes becomes your drive to say, I'm going to make this happen because our children need this. And I'm going to contribute what I can contribute, even though, you know, you can't do it all. You got to, you know, it's a collective mind. But sometimes that collective mind starts with one person standing up and saying, look, I'm going to make sure this happens. And then other people, they feel empowered by you standing up. So you might think you're alone, but by the fact that you stood up and you started doing it, other people join in, and then you realize, okay, I'm not alone in this. Okay, this is cool. This is cool. You know, and then because what is, you're taking the step of leadership. So that's me, Guy, unless you have a.
No, I'll, for instance of time, I'll just stay with what you said.
Great answer. Great question. We got students already on their laptops in here sending questions through the website. Y'all, let's give our guests a round of applause, please. All right. Thanks on behalf of the school.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you did that. I really liked it. Yep. Awesome.
This was really cool. I did record the session inside of Zoom. If you guys would like a copy of it, I have no problem.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, great. We'll make sure we get that to you. Thank you for visiting us. This was a great visit. The message was powerful. We're gonna be talking about this from weeks to come, and we're gonna be bragging in the social media community, the whole 9 yards. While everybody's going to see the Black Panther, we had the opportunity to meet Brotherman Comics and really talk to some creators. And that's what we want our children to be, creators. So thank you guys so much for visiting us. And we are going to tell our parents to support you. We have the website, and keep pushing and keep doing what you're doing, brothers.
All right. Thank you. And thank you all. Keep doing that good work.
That's right.
All right.
Sir. Peace.
Peace.
All right. All right.
But
Good job. Great job.
why is everyone leaving the meeting? I said, why is everyone leaving the meeting?
Everyone's not leaving. Somebody's deal dropped off, you know, and they